everybody. Welcome back. 1776 or bust. And on the table, you have this little beauty right here, which is the Walther PPS RMSC ABCDEFGH. Anyway, so it's an extremely long name for this handgun. So we'll just call it the PPS because, again, that's what it really is. Now, in regards to the original review that I did of this gun, it was just a tabletop. I had not had any experience shooting it. I did run into a slight problem with the optic. Now, keep in mind, I did buy this used, so I wasn't expecting it to be in perfect shape. However, the gun totally was in great shape. I mean, it looked like it had not even been shot at all. By the way, the gun is safety checked and cleared before the video came up. Now, in regards to what I thought about it now, I actually wound up sending the shield sight back to them. So it had to go back to England. And they wound up replacing the sight, the optic. And once I got it back, there was a little bit, like I'm going to say in the next part of this video, a slight breakdown in communication, but once it was received, it was great. Now, overall, the dot actually is very bright. It's very vivid, easy to pick up. There really is no problems with it. The glass so far, no scratches after about, 300 plus or so rounds. So overall, the performance of the optic was good. Now, how is the gun actually built? Again, this is a PPS M2. For those of you out there who have experience with this handgun, you're going to realize that this is just a fine piece of equipment. There really is nothing to complain about. I mean, ergonomically, the gun is fantastic. I will tell you that my preference was shooting it with the extended magazine, the 7-rounder, but the ergonomics are really good. It just fits nicely in your hand. The support hand comes around, and it just really hits that trigger guard in the right spot. So overall, it just is such an easy gun to handle. Again, there are some people who will criticize the gun because it's a heavy handgun. It's 21.7 ounces unloaded. So that can definitely deter some people who want something a little bit lighter for carry. However, just keep in mind that weight will offset the recoil on this handgun. I will say that for me, this was much flatter shooting than any other single stack that I've ever owned. And I like that. Again, I've had experience with the M2s before, and I never had an issue with it. So I was really excited to see how this was going to perform. Now, in regards to the optic, one of the things that I noticed as I was shooting it, it took me a lot of time to really be able to zero this in. And honestly, it just wasn't a real solid day shooting. For me, this was a little bit of a more erratic type of shooting than honestly I'm used to. As a matter of fact, it just shows me that I need to develop a better knowledge base, a better feel for these types of guns. And again, that's something I can't stress enough. If you guys are going to invest your money in something like this, then by all means, you're going to have to realize you're going to have to train with it. You're going to have to really master this in order to be effective when carrying it. So right now, I can't even carry this gun because I'm really just not comfortable enough to say that I'm proficient enough as a shooter with it, which is kind of disappointing because I do want to carry it because it really is just very nicely put together. Now, in regards to the trigger, it's nice. It's smoothing up already. The reset is fairly pronounced now. Initially, when I had the gun, I'll see if it's still there. It's actually gone. There was a little bit of a double click on the reset, and now that's gone. So that's actually a good sign for this handgun in particular. I mean, overall, it functioned flawlessly. Now, in regards to the red dot, one of the things that I noticed in regards to the optic was that as I was able to zero this in, and I'm going to try to get this as straight. As a matter of fact, let me zoom in on this camera so maybe you guys can see it yourselves. But one of the things that I noticed when I had the optics on here was that as I got it to go basically right above the front sight, around the 225 round mark, it seems like the red dot has shifted slightly to the right. Now, it's hard to kind of get that picture in there. I mean, it's as good as I'm going to get, but that's as straight as I can hold it right now. And you can see, guys, as I talk, I am moving the hands a little bit. Plus, they shake, you know that. But what I noticed was that the red dot kind of glided to the right-hand side of the optic. And again, I'm not really sure why that happened. I mean, that's something that I'm going to have to investigate further with more time at the range with this particular handgun. But I mean, overall, even with that, I still have a lot of faith in this gun. The gun is really nice, guys. It is built very well. It functioned flawlessly for the most part. I would say that there is still some uneasiness for me in regards to operating it with the actual optic. But overall, it was a great gun to shoot. I mean, I just didn't shoot it very well. So it's definitely something that I've got to commit my my resources to and my time. I mean, this is not a gun, and really for that matter, any red dot or optics ready type of handgun is not a gun that you should shoot once or twice in like 3 months. It's something that you really should try to master the best of your ability because, again, if you're going to carry it, you don't have to be fishing for that red dot. I mean, as soon as you bring it up to your eye level, you want to make sure that that gun is ready to be shot and it's hitting the target that you're pointing it at. And again, to me, for me, it takes time to do that. Again, not saying the gun doesn't work. I just think that I need more practice with it, as you guys seen in the video with what I showed you as my shooting that day, which again was not very eventful in regards to this handgun. Now, one of the other things that I just wanted to show you as well is that, you know, obviously some people might say this is not worthy because when they have guns like the Glock 48, the Glock 48, even though it's, you know, supposedly bigger, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in regards to this from slide to slide. Let's see if you can see that there. So that's basically, you know, matching them up the best I can right now. And what you're going to notice here, guys, is that that Glock 48's grip is about the same length as that PPS M2. And it's 10 rounds. So, I mean, that's something that you have to consider now also. And I think that's why a lot of people have turned away from this, just based on the fact that it's got the weight and also the low capacity compared to some of the other single stacks that are on the market. For example, the 48, the 43X, the SIG P365, so on and so forth. Also to boot, there's not a heck of a lot you can do to this. You can get mag guts for the magazines. There's really no trigger job that can be done with this. You can polish the internals, but other than that, you're just about done. Obviously, you can get sights for it. I have not done that. And again, I don't know if I'm going to. I don't know if they're necessary for this gun. But even as I hold the dot up there, you can almost see that that red dot is angled to the right now. And initially, it was straight on, and then it moved to the right. So that's the only real disappointing factor in all this. So again, I hope you guys take that into account when you're looking at red dots. And, you know, I hope you guys have some thoughts about that. All right, guys, so let's kind of finish up with the talk about the optics ready handgun. So one of the things that I immediately knew right off the bat was that I wasn't going to shoot this very well. I am not used to shooting red dots. I'm not very proficient at shooting red dots. So as a result, when I got this gun, I knew it was going to take some time, some effort to really get this down pat. It's a little bit different than shooting with the iron sights. And the reason why I say that is because when you draw your handgun and you bring it up to your eye level, you don't want to have to sit there and fish around for where that red dot is. You want to be able to bring it up to your eye and know exactly where that dot's going to be at all times. And that is, honestly, for a person who doesn't invest a lot of time in this operation of this handgun, you're going to find it very difficult. I know I have, and I still do, because honestly, I didn't shoot this gun enough. I only had I had like 350 rounds that day. I wanted to shoot my PPQ as well, so I didn't want to spend all the ammunition on this handgun, but I wanted to get a feel for it, see where it was at. Now, of course, my biggest bone of contention with this was that around 225 rounds, give or take, I found that even though I had gotten the red dot to where I thought it was going to be in a good sight picture for me, I noticed that for whatever reason, after I hit 225 rounds, the red dot seemed to have shifted to the right side. And even now when I hold the gun up to my eye level, and I won't muzzle the camera because I don't want anybody getting scared, but as even as I hold it out directly in front of me, as straight as I can hold it, I'm noticing that that red dot has shifted slightly to the right. And as soon as that happened, I noticed that the targets, or I should say the groupings, were all over the place, very erratic. And I'm going to tell you, even when I look at the footage that I showed earlier, one of the things that I noticed was I was just erratic shooting the gun anyway. So it wasn't an overall great day to shoot for me in regards to this handgun. But that's why I'm saying if you guys are going to go and invest your hard-earned money in an optics-ready handgun, you better make sure you're aware that you're going to have to take some time to spend with that gun to be able to get very proficient with that. And my concern would be that unless you're using this every day and unless you're going to commit to using the red dot, I find it very difficult for people to be able to master it. Again, I would highly recommend taking a look at the Humble Marksman's series on red dots and optics ready handguns. It was a great series. He did a good job on it because he really went through it in a very in-depth manner. So I would highly recommend that whole collection of videos he put out. And I think it was very helpful for me, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful for you. Again, I have to spend more time with this gun to give a really honest overall what I think about it. I think it has a lot of great potential. I mean, the PPS M2 is built like a rock. It is solid as solid can be. The recoil is very minimal at best. It does not feel like a single stack 9mm at all. It feels and shoots relatively like a double stack compact size handgun. And I like the features of that. I think that's actually a benefit, and I actually think that's a good thing for any carry weapon. I also noticed that when I was shooting it, The flat base plate, not my favorite. Again, obviously, it's more ideal for extreme concealability because you can't even get your pinky on there. So I think that's good for the concealability factor. However, I would say my preference to carry is actually with this. And this is the 7-round magazine. I just feel like I get a better grip. It is still very easily concealable in a holster. However, I think for me, that's the way I would go. Now, overall, what would I say about what I've seen so far? So far, the gun is great. It's a solid handgun. The optic, I think, is decent, but I'm still concerned about why the red dot moved or shifted to the right. Again, I don't know if that was user error, although I don't see how it could be. But at the same time, none of the screws were coming loose, so I don't know what it was. So I'm going to have to invest more ammunition and more time behind this handgun before I can either condemn it or say it was a great handgun. I mean, overall, without the red dot, this would be a great performer. There was no issues with it. The rounds came out, no problem. However, with the red dot, I'm still a little bit uneasy in regards to operating that way because I just wasn't good enough of a shooter that day to stand by it with my personal use. You, if you decide to get this gun or any optics ready gun, you may be proficient right out of the box. And if you are, great. I'm just giving you my honest assessment of what I did that day. And honestly, I wasn't real happy with it. And again, I don't think it's the gun. I don't think it's the optic. I think it's yours truly. And I think that's an eye opener for people if they're going to invest their money in any kind of optics ready handgun, that you're going to have to commit to putting some time, some energy, and some money behind the idea that you're going to have to really train with this to get very proficient with it. So again, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the whole optics ready thing. What are your experiences with it? What advice would you give someone if they were going out there to purchase one of these handguns in regards to training and becoming proficient with it? So I hope you have a great night. Stay safe. And as always, freedom is never free.